The WNBA draft is next Monday. Today I'm going to give my predictions on how the first round of the WNBA draft will go, and I'll talk about some later round picks that could be interesting. This is the most important time in the WNBA's history. Not only is the draft full of many talented players, they bring a level of marketability the WNBA hasn't seen in 2 decades. They skyrocketed the popularity of college basketball, and ideally they will do the same for the WNBA. Now let's get into it. I'm not going to spend much time talking about the first pick. This is like the 2003 draft with LeBron, or more recently the 2023 draft with Wemby. The fact they already gave the Indiana Fever 36 nationally televised games tells you all you need to know. Not only is she the best player in the draft, and already exponentially grew the popularity of the Fever. They badly need a point guard. If you thought Aliyah Boston looked good now, just wait until Caitlin Clark joins the team. The Sparks historically love drafting California players, and I don't think Cameron Brink will be any exception. She's the most skilled post player in the draft, averaging 17 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 blocks in only 25 minutes of play is absolutely ridiculous. She's a 2-time National Defensive Player of the Year. Her connection with Steph Curry has paid off as she has turned into a very good jump shooter. There are times she fell a bit too in love with it, but her shooting is still better than any post player not named Alissa Pili. She's a very underrated ball handler. It's not seen much because Stanford needs her to be at the 5 position. My biggest worry is that they will try to run Cameron Brink at the center position. Having her bang with players like Jonquel Jones, Brittany Griner, and Tierra McCowan is just asking for trouble. She's going to be on the floor more than Chloe Kitts. Cameron Brink is extremely skilled, but she has to hit the weight room. But between her having an extremely high ceiling and her being native to California, Cameron at 2 makes a ton of sense. I've went back and forth with who the Sky might pick at 3. Will they get Rickea or Cardoso? There's no wrong answer here. A part of me thinks they are heavily considering Cardoso, especially after the dominant tournament run she had. Another incentive to draft Cardoso is to keep the Sparks from drafting both Cardoso and Brink. We're talking about the WNBA version of Tim Duncan and David Robinson, but I think they ultimately choose Rickea Jackson. Her offensive skill set is perfect for the WNBA. She's a 6'2" level scorer who has the strength to put her back to the basket and score in the paint. She's an excellent ball handler for her size, and her signature fadeaway move is unstoppable. Her defense was very bad in college, but she has the size and athleticism to be developed into a good defender. It's about a coach making her put more effort on that side of the ball. The reason I think they go with Rickea over Cardoso is because I think Chicago will value her potential more. I really don't think there is a wrong answer here. However, there's definitely a wrong answer in the Sparks case. The Sparks worry me a lot, because if anyone would fumble having the 2nd and 4th pick, it would be them. If they pass up on Rickea or Cardoso, it's going to be the equivalent of when the Suns passed up on Luka and Trade Young for DeAndre Ayton. The ideal situation would be if Chicago drafts Rickea. I will do a more in-depth explanation on why if they end up doing it, but I think Brink and Cardoso would work a lot better together than people think. It would make things a lot easier on Cameron Brink. Cardoso's size forces the other team to put their tallest or most physical player on her. For example, if they played the Mercury, they would be forced to put Brittany on Cardoso or she'll feast. If they played Dallas, McCowan would have to guard Cardoso. So Cameron Brink would have the luxury of not seeing the best post defender each game, and they would be an absolute juggernaut defensively. You have the 2 best post defenders in college on the same team. Anyone that's not a WNBA superstar is going to have a hard time scoring in the paint. If Rickea is on the board instead of Cardoso, that's a great pick for the Sparks too. I think Dallas provides the first huge curveball of the night, and that curveball is drafting Angel Reese. There isn't an immediate need for the Dallas Wings. They have no shortage of young talent. They haven't even tried out yet because of injuries or other circumstances. What they could use is someone like Angel Reese to help grow the popularity of the team. There's a risk that Angel Reese doesn't develop a consistent jump shot, which would make her a scoring liability in the WNBA. We've seen several times this season that she struggles with players bigger than her, which will be very common in the WNBA. But there's no other team to better take this risk than Dallas. They are already one of the best teams in the WNBA, so a rookie not working out would barely even affect them. And they have another pick at number 9. They have no shortage of people that can score the basketball, and they have a true center, so they don't have to force Angel to play at the 5. She'll definitely have her struggles on offense, but she can do just about everything else. She's a very good passing post, an athletic defender, and runs the floor very well. The Dallas Wings are the masters of managing draft capital. If they don't get Angel, I think they trade the pick down for future assets. I think the Mystics will shock people and draft Alissa Pili. She's projected to be a late first-round pick. I really don't see that happening. There's a risk that Pili is a bust, but there's just as high of a chance that she becomes one of the most unstoppable scorers in the WNBA. We've never seen a player like Pili play in the WNBA, which is a concern for a lot of people, but it's also an advantage. It will be hard to defend against something that's completely different than what they're used to seeing. I think if Elena Delle Donne doesn't step away from the team and Natasha Cloud doesn't leave, they would go with a safer pick like Aliyah Edwards. But the Mystics need to swing for the fences. Alissa Pili is averaging over 20 points per game, while shooting 50% from the field, 40% from three, and 80% from the free throw line. Pili is the only non-lottery pick that you can legitimately build a WNBA offense around. I think based off that fact alone, the Mystics will take her. The biggest concern is definitely her defensive ability. She's undersized and doesn't have the athleticism to make up for it. But I think the Mystics will eventually find a way to play around it. There's a lot of speculation that Minnesota will draft Angel Reese, but I would be shocked if that happens. They just signed Alana Smith and Dorka Uhas is playing really well. If Georgia Amore was available in the draft, that's who I think they would have used this pick on. But now they have to pivot. Isobel has played really well in the Australian League, the same Australian League where many Lynx players are participating in. So I think this is someone Cheryl Reeve would want. Maybe they trade down to get her, but I expect her to end up in Minnesota somehow. She might not be available for this season, but I don't think they will mind waiting as they acquired multiple experienced guards in the offseason. I think Aliyah Edwards will be picked lower in the draft than expected. I think Dallas and the Mystics will value Angel and Pili's potential over Aliyah Edwards. If she had a three-point jumper, I think this is an entirely different conversation. She definitely has a place in the WNBA, but I think her ceiling is too limited for her to be a top 5 pick in a draft as stacked as this one. Rickea Jackson is the only true small forward in the draft, so the Chicago Sky have a lot of flexibility in who they choose to pair with her. I think they go with Aliyah Edwards because historically UConn players do very well in the WNBA. It's very rare for them to be a bust. I agree with ESPN that Dallas will draft Jacy, but I don't think they use the 5th pick on her. I think they take their chances and assume she'll still be there with the 9th pick, and I think there's a high possibility she will be. Jacy and Jalen Sherrod are easily the fastest players in the draft. Dallas loves to play high-paced basketball, which is perfect for Jacy Sheldon. She's a great defender and a 3-level scorer. I suspect they run her at the shooting guard position, as that's more natural for her. She was forced to run point out of necessity for Ohio State. Dallas would have to cut some players to make room if they want to keep Sheldon on the roster. But they have proven in the past they aren't afraid to make cuts if need be. I think there's 2 people the Connecticut Sun look at, assuming Alissa Pili is off the board. Those 2 people are Jalen Sherrod and Dyaisha Fair. I think it comes down to whether or not they value Jalen's defense or Fair's scoring more. My guess is they go with Dyaisha Fair. I think she quietly helped her draft stock in the All-Star game. In a room of potential WNBA prospects, she stuck out. But more specifically, her passing. Her shot selection was questionable at Syracuse, but she has proven if she's surrounded with more talent, she'll make the right reads and hit the open person. I think that's what ultimately pushes her in the first round. She starts off slow but then heats up in the second half. That's not ideal in a WNBA setting, but playing with Alyssa Thomas should allow her to get some easier looks. I think the Liberty take Nika Muhl in the first round, as the tournament heavily increased her draft stock. She defended great scorers her entire career, but people finally got to see it on a national stage. She gets torched by really quick guards like Kiki Rice and Hannah Hidalgo, so that's something they will have to keep in mind. But in general, she's a very good defender. The Liberty have no shortage of scorers, so I don't think they will mind getting a 3-and-D player. She's also a very gifted passer, which is a skill that's valuable on any team. The Liberty have talented guards, but they need one that's willing to play intense defense the entire time they are on the court. If she's able to guard great players in the WNBA, she will have a long career as a role player. If she isn't picked up in the first round, I could see the Fever taking a look. The Atlanta Dream are in a very bad spot with the 12th pick. The Atlanta Dream badly need a backup center, and someone who will eventually start once Tina Charles' tenure is over, but Liz Kitley tore her ACL. Jessica Carter's the next best available center, but she was not impressive against South Carolina and LSU, or the All-Star game in Cleveland, or in other words, against other WNBA prospects. There's a very high probability she will still be available in the second round, so if they want her, they can get her there. Someone who won't be available by the time Atlanta's second round pick comes around is Nyadiew Puouch. She is a 6'3" level scorer. Her game is extremely raw and needs some work, but her ceiling is arguably one of the highest in this draft class. When you have a 6'3" player that can do all the things that she can, you got to take the chance. And I think they will. They can test their luck with a center in the second round, because Cardoso was the only safe bet at that position anyway. I'll go over some honorable mentions. I think Charisma Osborne hurt her draft stock. She was very ineffective in the LSU game and had difficulty scoring against a Creighton team not known for defense. I think she'll get drafted, but I think that performance made GMs second guess drafting her in the first round. Elizabeth Kitley won't be able to play next season, and there's questions on whether or not her game will translate. But so many teams are desperate for a center, I think she goes high in the second round. If Jalen Sherrod had a three-point shot, she would be a consensus first-round pick. She's one of the fastest players in college basketball, a good defender, and has excellent court vision. There's no way a team doesn't take a chance on her in the second round. It's almost certain that the Indiana Fever will add an Iowa player to be with Caitlin Clark. They had a teammate of all their top draft picks. Kate Martin is great friends with Caitlin and was the leader for Iowa. They will definitely bring her in to make the transition easier. In terms of ability, she can fulfill the role Lexi Hull is currently in. If Lexi starts missing open shots, I can definitely see them subbing in Kate. That's it for my draft predictions. This is more of what I think they would do, rather than what they should do, although there is some overlap between the two. Once the official draft happens, I'll give my thoughts on it and grade the teams and whatnot. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you later.